Hey there, hope everybody is doing well. As promised, I'm a little late with it. Sorry about that. I wanted to talk to you all about some issues I'm seeing coming up surrounding the research essay. I'm almost done with outlines. I'm getting to the ones that were submitted on the late side. I've had draft conferences with a few of you already. As a side note, please make sure that you go ahead and get your draft conference scheduled. You should have a significant portion of your draft done before we meet so that we can look at it together and talk about it. Draft conferences are held in Collaborate. I'll send you a link and we can meet online. I have you email your essay to me before we meet so that I can share it on my screen and we can go through it together. If you have audio enabled, it goes a little faster. If you don't, you can certainly send me questions and comments through the chat feature in Collaborate. So another note, when you schedule your Collaborate meeting, please do try to show up for it. When I'm scheduling, I have a lot of y'all, and I'm scheduling these, and when people don't show up, that's holding a time slot that then doesn't get used for a student. So please try to make sure that you stick with the time, and if you need to move it, try to let me know in advance if you can. I understand stuff comes up. Everybody's in difficult situations right now with people having to share laptops and internet bandwidth, all that stuff. So I understand. I'm not upset, if you can't make it, but please do your best to let me know if you're going to need to reschedule. And we'll be doing essay conferences throughout next week. I remember that the research essay is due at the end of the month, so we do have a little bit more time. So some things that I'm seeing moving through with the outlines, some of the outlines did not have titles. Some didn't have a clear argument in the thesis. Some of y'all were still stuck in position paper mode and trying to show both sides of the issue. At this point, you should be creating an argument. This research essay is argumentative, so you do need to state an argument. But rather than say, I or this paper is going to tell you, just state the argument. Be sure that you use precise wording. If you use a word like this is a pointer word. It should have a word behind it telling you what this is. So this idea, this concept, this group of people, this problem, etc. Try to avoid using vague words like things, because we don't know exactly what those things are. A lot of times we use things as a placeholder intending to go back and fix it and say precisely what it is that we mean. Make sure you go back and fix those issues. Make sure, too, that your argument is narrow and focused. There were some questions earlier in the course designed to help you narrow a topic. Thinking about a particular topic and then who is affected by it. What is that demographic that is affected? And that can help you narrow your argument down a little bit. In some of the outlines and some of the drafts, I've been seeing people trying to take on multiple problems, multiple issues. This essay is going to work best if you focus on one. You're only asked to write 4 to 6 pages on this topic. And I know that may sound like a lot, but once you get in there, showing what the problem is, why it's a problem, how the problem needs to be fixed, how that would work, how that's going to fix the problem, and then addressing your opposition, that adds up, and it can start to feel really out of hand if you haven't narrowed that focus. You want to avoid generalizations. You don't want to make statements about all people or groups of people. Some people is generally going to be a lot more correct than all people. So think about that as you are setting these up. As you draft your essay, please try to resist adding filler. Sometimes students, this is the first time I've given you all a page requirement. That's not something I do very much because I don't want to encourage people to fluff essays. And I see students sometimes just try to save stuff to fill up the paper, and I don't want you to do that. If you feel like you need to write more, it's probably because an idea is underdeveloped. It needs more evidence. It needs more discussion. It needs to be connected to the other ideas in the essay. So focus on doing that rather than saying something over and over again or making filler statements that don't really mean a lot to your reader. You want to make sure that every sentence in your paper serves a purpose. It needs to be conveying information to the reader. It needs to be showing connections between ideas. It should not be there just to take up space. So please do make sure that you have looked thoroughly at the assignment and the rubric. Um, with source use, I gave you readings on source use. I've talked about source use a little bit. I'm seeing some outlines that look like you're summarizing sources rather than creating a research paper. Remember, the idea here was to do research, formulate your argument, and use the information you found as support for your argument. This should not just be a restatement of what other people have said on the subject. You should be taking that information and synthesizing it, taking those pieces, pulling them together to make your argument, to support your argument. And make sure too that you're being very careful with your citing, with your use of quotation marks, with your paraphrasing. The research paper is the time to show that you can do these things. Now, if you need help with that stuff, that's fine. I'm glad to answer questions. The Writing and Reading Center is doing online sessions, and you have a lot of resources available. You know, there's time. It's not like this thing is due tomorrow. You've got time to work on these skills. Make sure your MLA format is correct at this point. I've been helping some students tweak things like a few little spacing issues. We're at a point now where this should be right. So make sure that you're using the 12-point font, that you've got your essay double spaced the whole way through. You have a header with your last name and page number. You have a title relevant to your essay centered at the top. So make sure that you pay attention to those details as well. Content's definitely important, but you also need to show that you can execute and follow the directions of the assignment that you're given. Make sure that your works cited entries are complete. With the annotated bibliographies, there were some incomplete citations. Make sure that you've taken care of those issues. So those were the points that I wanted to touch on for this week. I'm scrambling to get everything graded and back to everybody so that you can move forward. If you have questions, as always, please get in touch. Note that I did send out a new office hour link, and that when we set up our Collaborate links, I'm sending you individual meeting links, and that way nobody accidentally bumps in on someone else's meeting. So all that information should be where you need it. If you have questions, please get in touch, and I hope you all have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing lots of you in conferences next week. Take care.